Behind the curtain, a glimpse into Africa's hermit kingdom. Africa, a continent brimming with vibrant cultures, stunning landscapes, and complex histories. From the bustling markets of Marrakesh to the serene savannas of the Serengeti, Africa is a land of contrasts and wonders. Its people, with their rich traditions and diverse languages, paint a mosaic of human civilization that is both ancient and ever-evolving. Yet, hidden amongst its diverse nations, lies a country shrouded in secrecy, often dubbed Africa's North Korea. Eritrea, a nation that remains an enigma to the outside world, cloaked in mystery and isolation. This is the story of Eritrea, a land where the internet is a luxury few can afford and where dissent is met with swift and brutal repression. In Eritrea, the government maintains a tight grip on information, and the flow of ideas is stifled. The streets, though bustling with life, are marked by a palpable sense of control and surveillance. Imagine a place where time seems to stand still. Villages that appear frozen in a bygone era where modernity has barely made a mark. The rhythm of life here is dictated by traditions and the ever-watchful eye of the state, where the echoes of a decades-long struggle for independence linger in the air, intertwined with the ever-present shadow of an authoritarian regime. The scars of war are etched into the landscape and the collective memory of its people, serving as a constant reminder of the price of freedom. This is the reality for the people of Eritrea, a nation cut off from the world, its borders heavily guarded, its people living in fear. But why? What drives this isolation, and what are the consequences for those who call this place home? What led to this small nation on the Horn of Africa becoming a byword for isolation and oppression? To understand Eritrea's present, we must journey back through its tumultuous past, exploring the events and decisions that have shaped its current state. To understand, we must delve into its history, tracing the roots of its current predicament and uncovering the factors that have shaped its destiny. From colonial rule to its hard-fought independence, Eritrea's story is one of resilience and struggle. For behind the veil of secrecy lies a story of struggle, resilience, and the human cost of unchecked power. The spirit of the Eritrean people, though battered, remains unbroken, a testament to their enduring strength and hope. This is a story that deserves to be told, a story that demands our attention. It is a call to the world to bear witness to the plight of a nation and to stand in solidarity with its people. A troubled past, from colonial rule to dictatorship. Eritrea's story is one marked by a long and arduous struggle for self-determination. Colonized by Italy in the late 19th century, it later found itself absorbed into Ethiopia following World War II. This annexation sparked a fierce resistance movement, igniting a 3-decade-long war for independence. Finally, in 1991, after years of bloodshed and sacrifice, Eritrea tasted the sweet fruit of freedom. The triumph, however, was short-lived. The very leader who had guided Eritrea to independence, Isaias Afwerki, morphed into an authoritarian figure. A promised transition to democracy never materialized. Instead, Eritrea found itself trapped in the clutches of a one-party state, with Afwerki at its helm, holding the reins of power with an iron grip. The constitution, drafted in the aftermath of the war, was never implemented. Elections were promised but never held. Political opposition was ruthlessly crushed. Independent media outlets were silenced, their voices replaced by the monotonous drone of state-controlled propaganda. Eritrea, once a beacon of hope for African liberation, had become a prisoner of its past, its hard-won independence morphing into a cruel parody of freedom. The Supreme Leader, a familiar tale of power and paranoia. At the heart of Eritrea's isolation lies its enigmatic leader, Isaias Afwerki. His rule has shaped the nation in ways that are both profound and deeply troubling. A veteran of the liberation struggle, Afwerki is a figure cloaked in an aura of both reverence and fear. His journey from a freedom fighter to a repressive ruler is a tale of power's corrupting influence. To his supporters, he is the father of the nation, the man who led them to independence, the guarantor of their hard-won sovereignty. They see him as a hero who brought them freedom and continues to protect their nation from external threats. To his detractors, he is a ruthless dictator, responsible for turning Eritrea into a giant open-air prison. They argue that his regime has stifled freedom and crushed any form of dissent. Afwerki's leadership style bears a striking resemblance to that of another reclusive leader, Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Both leaders have created states that are isolated from the world, where the government controls nearly every aspect of life. Both men preside over highly centralized, authoritarian regimes characterized by an all-encompassing cult of personality. Their images are omnipresent, and their words are treated as law. Both demand absolute loyalty and maintain a vice-like grip on information, controlling every aspect of their citizens' lives. The media is tightly controlled and any form of dissent is swiftly and brutally suppressed. Fear is the primary tool of control in Eritrea. The constant presence of military forces and the threat of severe punishment for any form of dissent keep the population in check. The government maintains an extensive network of informants, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. Neighbors are encouraged to spy on each other, and no one feels safe to speak their mind. Arbitrary arrests, torture, and enforced disappearances are commonplace, silencing any whisper of dissent. The fear of being taken away in the middle of the night is a constant reality for many Eritreans. Critics of the regime, both real and imagined, are often labeled as traitors or foreign agents, convenient scapegoats for the country's woes. This labeling serves to justify the harsh measures taken against them and to rally the population against perceived external threats. Section 4. Whispers of Oppression, Human Rights in the Shadows. In this chapter, we delve into the hidden and often overlooked human rights abuses that occur in the shadows, away from the global spotlight. Eritrea's human rights record is abysmal, drawing condemnation from international organizations and human rights groups. Despite the global outcry, the situation remains dire, with little to no improvement over the years. The country is often referred to as Africa's North Korea because of its egregious human rights violations, its closed society, and its isolationist policies. The government maintains a tight grip on the population, using fear and repression to silence dissent. The United Nations has accused the Eritrean government of committing crimes against humanity, including enslavement, torture, and extrajudicial killings. These accusations are based on numerous reports and testimonies from survivors who have managed to escape the oppressive regime. One of the most glaring human rights violations is the indefinite national service, a system of conscription that forces citizens, some as young as 16, into military or civil service for an unspecified period, often lasting for years. This system disrupts lives, separates families, and deprives young people of their future. This practice, justified by the government as a necessary measure to defend the country against perceived external threats, has been condemned by the UN as a form of enslavement. The harsh conditions and lack of freedom within the national service have led many to risk their lives to flee the country. Freedom of speech, press, and assembly are non-existent. The government controls all media outlets, and any form of dissent is swiftly and brutally suppressed. Journalists and activists are often imprisoned without trial, and many have disappeared without a trace. Religious freedom is severely restricted, with only 4 officially recognized religions. Those who practice unregistered faiths face persecution, imprisonment, and torture. Many are forced to worship in secret, constantly fearing discovery and retribution. The government controls the internet, blocking access to independent news websites and social media platforms. This digital censorship ensures that the outside world remains largely unaware of the true extent of the human rights abuses occurring within Eritrea. This information blackout makes it difficult to get an accurate picture of life inside Eritrea, but the stories that do emerge paint a grim picture of a nation living in fear. The courage of those who risk everything to share their experiences is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable oppression. Section 5, A Nation in Chains, The Crushing Grip of Poverty. Beyond the human rights violations, Eritrea faces significant economic challenges. Despite gaining independence in 1991, the country remains one of the poorest in the world. Its economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, which is vulnerable to frequent droughts. The government's tight control over the economy, coupled with its isolationist policies, has discouraged foreign investment, further hindering economic growth. The indefinite national service, while ostensibly a security measure, has had a devastating impact on the economy. With a significant portion of the population forced into military or civil service, many families are left without breadwinners. The lack of a skilled workforce has crippled industries, stifling economic development and perpetuating a vicious cycle of poverty. The situation is further exacerbated by the government's reluctance to accept international aid. While millions of Eritreans struggle to survive, the government maintains a defiant stance, refusing aid that it perceives as a threat to its sovereignty. This misguided self-reliance has come at a heavy price, condemning its citizens to a life of hardship and deprivation.